Welcome, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed your networking session and really had, the richness and wealth of everyone who has been engaging in today's event. So this is our final and last session of our virtual investment forum. And again, it has been an extremely rich day with very informative and interesting interventions across our presentations and panels. So to end our event on a very high note, I present to you our fourth and final thematic panel. This last panel is on market access and export opportunities, and will focus on the opportunities and challenges related to accessing international markets and enhancing exports of blue economy products and services from participating countries. We are delighted to announce Kieron Swift, Business Climate Reform Portfolio Consultant at Compete Caribbean, as our moderator. And Mr. Swift will be joined by the following esteemed panelists: Asia Williams, Blue Economy Manager with the Wait Institute; Nigel Wint, Training Officer with CFTID; Nicola Maiden Craig, Group Director of Marketing and Sales at the Courtley Hospitality; Natasha Edwin Walcott, Senior Advisor, Competitive and Export Promotion with Caribbean Export. I pass it over to you, Kieron, to moderate today's final session.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and good afternoon, everyone. No pressure at all for us to be bringing up the final entry in today's program. I think we're gonna have fun with this. So thank you for joining us on today's panel on market access and export opportunities. As we begin, let's take a moment to consider the broader global context in which our discussion is going to take place. So globally, the WTO projected a 0.8% growth in the volume of trade in goods for 2023, underscoring the challenges that exporters face. And the challenges associated with such meager growth are felt acutely in regions like Latin America and the Caribbean, where the value of exports from this region contracted by 2.2% in 2023, after having grown by 17% in 2022, according to a report from the IDB. When we zoom into the Caribbean, the story is now, as it ever was, one of resilience, adaptation, and opportunity. Service exports, particularly those driven by tourism, grew by 13% last year, demonstrating the region's ability to leverage its natural and cultural assets for global competitiveness. Yet, there are always still disparities. For example, Grenada saw an impressive 82% surge in goods exports, while Dominica experienced a decline of 38%, so reflecting the varied economic performances that we see across OECS member states. Within the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, or ECCU, tourism continues to play a vital role in export revenues. We've been hearing a lot about tourism today, for example, contributing to a 19% increase in earnings this year. Meanwhile, imports into the OECS rose by 12%. So this emphasizes both the opportunities and the ongoing need to strengthen the trade balance of these countries. But encouragingly, FDI inflows into the ECCU grew by nearly 19%, signaling strong investor confidence in the region's long-term potential. So now, as we pivot to today's discussion, we're going to delve into areas that drive market access and export potential in the Eastern Caribbean, from supporting entrepreneurs in meeting sustainability standards, as we heard a bit about earlier during Dr. Budo's guest presentation, to fostering sustainable tourism and promoting blue economy innovation through human capacity development. We see that there are immense opportunities waiting to be unlocked. So we're fortunate to have a distinguished panel of experts with us today, and we're going to draw on their expertise to bring deep insights into competitiveness and export promotion, sustainable practices, and the vital partnerships that are required to help our region succeed. So as we explore these nuances, I want to encourage us to keep one fundamental question in mind. How can the Eastern Caribbean leverage its marine and coastal resources to enhance market access and export opportunities, driving economic growth while ensuring the long-term sustainability of its marine ecosystems through environmental stewardship and equitable distribution of return. So with that sort of setting the stage, I want to dive into the discussion and want to start by asking Asia. Asia, given your expertise in helping nations design sustainable blue economy strategies and your experience in supporting blue economy entrepreneurs to access grants and finance and training, as well as other areas within your varied experience you may wish to draw on, what would you say are some of the key barriers to accessing international markets for blue economy products?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today for this important discussion on sustainable blue economy. And thank you so much, Kieron, for that question. So in terms of key barriers to accessing international markets for blue economy products and entrepreneurs, often the things that I see in terms of small islands is the challenges around economies of scale, getting the right volume and quality over time. And then transportation logistics often between islands, across geographies, and the cost of production. As a region, I think we haven't done enough to invest in renewable energy, and that's something that can definitely improve the competitiveness of blue economy products and support value-added activities as well. So just to go into that a bit further, I think also in terms of, sustainable blue economy relies on ocean and marine assets. So we also need to protect the underlying natural asset base, which is, our marine ecosystems. And that can go a long way in sort of reducing some of the barriers to ensure that we can derive those long-term economic benefits. Specific market access challenges, as I mentioned, export logistics with shipping costs, for example, in our region are about 30% higher than Central America due to the low economies of scale and the reliance on external shipping routes. Also infrastructure. So if we look at sustainable seafood and building those markets, there's often limited cold chain facilities, which can impact the quality of perishable products like seafood. And also when we look at considerations for climate resilience, the impacts of climate-related events on our seafood facilities, on infrastructure, and that potential knock-on impact as well. There are also non-tariff barriers. For example, the EU has a stringent IUU, so illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing regulations that can disproportionately affect small-scale fishers. So, for example, in 2022, the EU flagged 17% of seafood exports for non-compliance, and that's a real risk in terms of the income that we derive from these type of products and the contribution that they play in our sustainable blue economy. Other sort of financial constraints to consider as well when we talk about sustainable seafood specifically, or even some of the sustainable tourism certifications, are around the high upfront costs of these certifications, of implementing traceability systems and sustainable harvesting methods. So for example, MSC, Marine Stewardship Council certification, can cost up to $50,000 per fishery. And, that can be a significant financial burden for SMEs in our region. But I think, all of these things present an opportunity in terms of the stakeholders that are present at this forum, in terms of how we can collectively support regional collaboration to either negotiate down the cost of certifications or offer collaborative training amongst several stakeholders and bring fisheries together to access trainings and improve the access to training and the quality of products, because we have these high value products, and it's a huge opportunity to be able to access these sustainable seafood markets. In up to March 2024, the retail value of the sustainable seafood market was around 13.4 billion US dollars. And so this is an area that we can definitely focus on growing sustainable blue economy, despite the challenges. There's increasing demand from seafood buyers for sustainable products. And so I think all of these challenges present an opportunity for us to align with these international standards, because there is up to a 30% premium for certifications and sustainable seafood products. And similarly, the demand for sustainable tourism is growing. So being able to transform our tourism model to embrace more sustainable tourism that sustains our ecosystems, that benefits local communities, is also an opportunity. As I mentioned, there are fragmented supply chains which can be difficult for small scale producers to achieve the economies of scale across islands. However, there's the potential to aggregate, to form cooperatives, to market products competitively. And I know there are a variety of organizations that have been working in this space to help support SMEs. And I think, this is part of the solution to work regionally and collaboratively in this fashion. So, for example, the Pacific region, through their Fisheries Federation, is really good at collective branding. And I think, the Caribbean brand is a strong brand globally, and we can do more to leverage that to market our sustainable blue economy products further. And then building on that, there are some additional considerations in terms of international trade requirements and the awareness by small scale fishers and other SMEs in terms of what those trade requirements are, what the sustainability standards are, and how we can raise that awareness, build the capacity, and provide the training regionally to ensure that people maximize these opportunities, and that us as organizations are providing the grants or the concessional loans, the financing mechanisms to ensure that these trainings can take place, and so that SMEs and artisanal fishers can benefit from them in line with SDG 14, which has a specific sub-goal on supporting artisanal fishers. And then lastly, I would just say, in terms of these are some of the barriers that I've seen, but some of the barriers that I potentially see in the future are around data challenges if we don't begin implementing data collection and transparency in our supply chains, based on international requirements around ESG-related reporting. For example, if you look at the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy, they have 6 environmental objectives in there around climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, transition to circular economy, pollution prevention, and then also the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. And so these are all things that we need to be able to have the data to report against and to access sustainable finance in this regard amongst our SMEs. And we need to prepare for this and align with specific standards, as well as their do no significant harm principle. So I will leave it there. And yeah, thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Asia. You've definitely set the tone and given us a good framing of both the challenges and opportunities acting in the region, ranging from economies of scale, as you pointed out, infrastructure gaps, high cost of certifications, and so on. I do want to circle back a bit later on the sustainable standards point, but we'll come back to that. For now, I want to introduce Natasha to the floor. And Natasha, no, we've spoken before, and I know that you're representing Caribbean Export, and you all are still in the process of building out your blue economy portfolio or pipeline, if you will. But drawing on Caribbean Exports, just broader experience in the region, can you share some examples of successful initiatives that Caribbean Export has implemented to help businesses overcome some of the market access challenges that Asia just articulated?
Okay, thank you, Kieron, and good afternoon, everybody. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So as Kieron would have mentioned, I will be approaching this really from a sort of a broad angle in terms of the support that we provide to the private sector to access regional and international markets, right? So pretty much in some Caribbean Export, we work with the private sector across the region to assist them to become export ready, and when they're export ready, to take them to market. So there's several initiatives, but if I would just concentrate on perhaps 2 of them in the main. So currently we are, and historically we've been funded by the European Union, and with that comes the expectation of companies being able to leverage the Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPA. So one of our flagship initiatives is training, EPA training that we carry out in person, and we've done that historically. There's always an interest in that training because of our ability and working with the EU delegation, depending on which market we're in. We will always have somebody from the EU who would unpack that trade agreement. But essentially, what we do is to provide information on accessing the market. Once a company knows the product or the HS code, then they can trade, right? And there's a lot of information that will be derived from that. So we provide training on assessing a company's export readiness. You'd go through a series of questions, and essentially it will give you a diagnostic as to whether you're export ready or what are the interventions or capacity building that you may wish to endeavor to get you to the stage of export readiness, right? We also provide information on using international trade centers tools, for instance, on trade and export potential. So if we were to use an example of CMOS, we know in recent time, CMOS has been a product that we've seen a lot of interest in. We get emails, people from the US, the UK asking us, hey, can you put us in touch with a company that can supply CMOS? So just using that product, if you know your HS code, you go on one of those tools and based on certain, you go through this report, you put in some queries and it could tell you, hey, which country may have an interest in CMOS. So it may say the UK, maybe there's a demand of X%, but it's only being fulfilled by Y. So you can assess the gap, and you could, do certain things to basically fulfill that gap. We also work with companies on cross-border partnerships. What does a buyer want? What are the type of regulatory, the certifications that a certain product would attract to gain market share? And one of the initiatives that I'm really proud to have led out on was a launch to market program where we would have worked with a cohort of companies. These were agro-processors, condiments and spices and sauces in the main. And what we would have done would have been to work with them over an extended period of time with a consumer fast move, an FMCG personnel from the UK who would have essentially provided mentorship to those companies. So over 10 months, they would have, had group training sessions looking at logistics, your pricing, route to market, all those buyer requirements that we sometimes take for granted, and understanding the capacity to export to meet those the supply from those partners. And following that exercise, we would have taken them to the UK as part of a market orientation. So we would have walked certain supermarkets. Everybody is very proud of their grandmother's pepper sauce, right? And you put up you want to sell your pepper sauce at £5. But when you go to a Tesco or Sainsbury, you realize that there are sauces that are less than the £5. So what would drive a UK consumer to pick up your £5 pepper sauce, right? And so these are the practical insights that we would have, shared with the companies. We would have visited a very large Caribbean importer. And, we just understood right there and there, those sort of requirements, because he, as a distributor, he's looking for about a 30% margin. And it's very rare that you would find the end retailer, meaning a Sainsbury's or a Tesco, or using a Caribbean example, it's not very often that Massey may buy directly from the producer. So there's always a middleman. There often is a middleman. So that middleman wants a 25 or 30% margin, and so does the retailer. So when you've priced already your product at £5, what exactly are you looking to gain as profit? So these are types of initiatives that we've done, the work that we do. So following this market orientation, the companies would have then exhibited at a 3-day trade show in the UK. And so just leveraging what Asia said in terms of the brand and the visibility, we would have branded our showcase as absolutely Caribbean. So right away, people can that can resonate with the buyers. Of course, it would be perhaps likely that a Jamaica or maybe a Trinidad might get brand recognition in the market. But going to those international shows, it really does help when we come together and showcase as brand Caribbean. So this is the type of work that we do on a day-to-day, and yeah, we're just happy to provide those sort of practical insights to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. You ended the Caribbean branding. When I asked the question, you started on training and information, and it seems, Nigel, that you were talking about training and information that we are calling your name. So I want to bring you to the table, and I want to hear from your perspective at the Caribbean Fisheries Training and Development Institute. How, in your experience, countries can take advantage of trade agreements, existing trade agreements? I mean, we mentioned the EPA, but it isn't only exclusive to that, to boost their exports.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me on this platform. It's been a pleasure to have been here in terms of sharing information in terms of this virtual investment forum. Countries can take advantage of existing trade agreements to boost exports in several ways. Firstly, by improving our regional integration through the exchange of goods and services between countries located in the same geographical location. This will promote economic development. Secondly, by reducing and eliminating tariffs and trade barriers, which make it cheaper and easier to export goods regionally and internationally. Thirdly, implementing harmonizing policies that will upgrade transportation of goods and services while overcoming information barriers. So once there are companies or countries that are trading with each other, we can make this trading more friendly for both countries so that these barriers, let's say economies of scale can be recognized. And I'll give examples of such as we go further. Finally, improving facilitation by diversification of goods and services, while improving competitiveness and access to regional international markets. Now, in the Caribbean, there are agreements that exist like CARIFTA, CARIFORUM, and CBI. CFTDI is committed through its training programs in seafood technology and maritime to take advantage of such agreements. Currently, we have an MOU existing with Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology in Barbados with our maritime training courses. And both governmental institutions are enjoying a symbiotic relationship. Additionally, our training courses in fish processing and fish technology are benchmarked, and we are currently seeking or exploring options to ensure that the certificates obtained through these training courses are CVQ accredited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. You drawing, if I want to play back, you give a lot of useful insight here. If I want to play back one thing in particular, it is what I'm hearing from you is the importance of exploiting the regional opportunities, regional market opportunities as a priority, and building up expertise and competence in that way before pursuing broader opportunities, broader field. I want to drill that down then into some specifics. I want to hear about perhaps some example companies. So perhaps Nicola, drawing on your area of expertise in tourism, are there some specific examples of export success stories that you're aware of that you want to bring to the table that other countries in the region, particularly those in the Eastern Caribbean that we are focused on, can emulate?
Thank you for having me, everyone. And before I go into the question, I just want to stop a little bit and just focus on where we are as a region, especially as it relates to tourism. we have an opportunity. The WTCC did a study that by 2032, we are looking at an additional 1.32 potential million new jobs in tourism and a doubling of our GDP across the region. The CHTA has been working in collaboration, and as its immediate past president, this is a high focus for us and ensuring that we can build out new markets. So when we're looking at strategically what are some of the things happening in other destinations, we know that the sustainable tourism market is now at somewhere in the region of $3 trillion and looking to jump up to 11 trillion by 2032. Or our venture travel market is at 600 million, and that is also looking to grow quite significantly. So when we look across the globe and we say, what are some jurisdictions that are doing well in this space that we are now going into? You know, Mauritius, for example, developed a very thriving seafood export industry through public-private partnership. And that's going to be very important for us to look across the region, that when we're thinking about building out not just public sector or private sector, but how can we use PPPs to successfully get our high-value products like tuna or shrimp into the EU markets. And for us, there may be other products and services. You mentioned CMOS earlier, one of our presenters, and there is such a need for new and innovative product lines that we have probably and see around the region as commonplace things. We see where other persons have really gone heavily into the whole issue of tourism around the marine environment. We see people doing sea turtle nesting and watching, dolphin and porpoise watching, coral reef exploration, humpback whale watching, and these have really driven a lot of eyes on their regions. And this is something that I know the Eastern Caribbean can definitely play a great part. You see bioluminescent bays. We have that in Grenada. We have that in St. Vincent. These are other areas of focus that other destinations have used to really impact the growth in their sector. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that we can focus on. When we were talking about our seafood, we see, areas like Maine lobster. We talk about branding. They have successfully not just say we export lobster, but we export Maine lobster. And is that something the Caribbean should be focusing on? Not just the general brand of the Caribbean or the Blue Caribbean as a theme, but can we look at specific species and brand them maybe by destination or by region and say what are the different and different characteristics, is it that how they are produced, how they're harvested, or sustainable practices, and create a brand around that. Just as we've done in some destinations like Jamaica, where you have Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee, which is like champagne. If it's not grown in that certain region under certain conditions, it cannot be called Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee. Can we look across the region and say for our seafood that if it's not grown under certain conditions, if it doesn't have a certain way in terms of us harvesting it, can we say that it is not from the Caribbean? And then how can we put a premium on the kinds of products and services that we are exporting? So I think there are lots of examples that happen outside of the marine environment in terms of how success has been brought to other products. I give another example from my home country of Jamaica with jerk. The jerk that started in one small area in Jamaica is now a worldwide and global success. It has built out cookbooks, recipe writing, a whole industry in terms of spices and sauces and rubs, equipment to cook the jerk with, coal specifically or wood that is made for jerk. So I think when we look at that overall aspect of success factors, we need to look outside of the marine environment, look at other successes we have done and replicate that. And I think if we focus in that direction, we're going to be successful in really taking advantage of what is a quite large piece of the pie that we need to get our own small piece of. I think you're muted, Kieron.
Thank you much, Nicola. So you've given us a lot of key tools to build on this. We're discussing PPPs to target some key products, tourism around the marine environment, which by definition would have to engage in sustainable practices if you're going to preserve that marine environment and continue tourism in that space. product development and branding, and geographic indication. That's an important one that you raised, and also underscoring it or drawing in success factors of other non-marine sectors that can be leveraged to drive exports in the blue economy related areas. So I want to stick on that question for a bit more and perhaps shift now, Natasha, and bring you back to the conversation. And again, drawing from the Caribbean export perspective, any specific examples on export success stories that can be emulated and replicated that you'd want to highlight?
Sure, and of course, sticking with the same theme that Nicola would have spoken about just now. So we have a company out of Belize, and they're an agro-processor, and they process turmeric into a turmeric paste, right? And one would not have thought, like, turmeric, it's a simple product, yes, but what they've been able to do is really find out the information about the product itself and where it's grown in Belize. So they know, for instance, that this particular turmeric, it contains 7.6% curcuminoids. And this is 3 times the average, the global average of this product. And I say this to say that's a certain health benefit, right? Anti-inflammatory, hypoallergenic. And this is important because especially post-COVID, consumers have become very health conscious. We see a lot of demand for free from products, so free from gluten. So you're talking about your cassava flour, banana flour, plantain, and so on. So these sort of natural products have been resonating well, and the insights and the data that when you look behind the imports of certain, whether it's aloe or ginger or even sea moss and those things, there's really a demand, especially from international markets for these products. But what that company has been able to do as well is to work with the Belizean farmer, maintaining a sustainable and equitable supply chain. They work with the growers, with the cooperatives. They pay above market rates to those farmers. And over the years, just using, going back to them, doing the feedback, the M&E and so forth, as of now, we can say that they right now in over 1,000 retailers in Canada, Belize, USA, and Bahamas. And this is just a piece, but they've also been able to show that you could use it in sauces, in your food, in your smoothies. And many consumers, like I said, they want to be able to tell a story or know where they're buying their products from. So they've been able to really leverage their brand story. So you feel like you're buying, while you might be purchasing that product on a supermarket shelf in some metropolitan city, they feel like they're buying it directly from the producer in Belize. And part of their story is to ensure that there's minimal impact on the environment, that they, by the payment or what they're paying the farmers, they believe they're making significant investment to the community to improve their lives, nutrition, and healthcare. So with that sort of package, using the brand story, they've been able to really capture global markets. Just not only the technical side of making sure they comply with certain the standards and certifications, etc., knowing their route to market, all that is important, but they've been able to really tell their brand story.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. So taking off from there, if you were to generalize, let's say the top 3 to 4 lessons from those experiences that you would translate well, and also building on the same perspective that Nicola shared a while ago, I would translate well now directly to the blue economy space, to the investors in the audience and so on, who are going to look at this webinar down the road. What would they be? How would you, from Caribbean export perspective, and advise them on capitalizing on export opportunities while ensuring, however, long-term sustainability?
Right. So I would say to know your product, understand your product and what it is that you're selling and who your potential consumer or buyer is, right? And, that will be able to tell you how to pitch your product, the certain demographics that you would go after. Do your market research. Of course, testing and certification is important. But also, I know Caribbean people, we tend to not look at the competitors, but I think I've always said that your competitors can tell you a lot about yourself or what you should or shouldn't be doing. So that's always very good to understand your competitors and what are they doing or how you could use or complement a product and in terms of your commercial proposition to a business. Maybe they have, I don't know, they're a smoothie company, but hey, you're missing my product to make it even better. So it's important that you look at your full life cycle, your 360, understand your market, like I said, and just try to resonate as much as possible with the buyer, understanding consumers are a lot more conscious lately, and I suppose thinking of blue economy products and so on. I'm sure there's something that, a story that we can tell, as Nicola said, whether it's in Mauritius or Seychelles or Maldives. I'm sure there is somebody who's already doing something that we could emulate.
Thanks, Natasha. Asia, I want to come back to you, building on what we've been hearing here about learning lessons that translate, learning lessons from successes in currently strong areas and translating them into these nascent blue economy areas. What strategies would you say have proven effective for meeting sustainability standards in key markets?
So I will just follow on a bit from what Nicholas said in terms of integrating sustainability into tourism and the demand for sustainable tourism, as well as the sustainable fisheries piece, which I think is also critical to blue economy. If we look at, for example, Belize, they've been very successful at implementing sustainable tourism and conservation policies through marine protected areas. So they have dedicated 30% established no-take zones. They have stringent reef management plans, and they've undergone extensive coral restoration programs. And they have the sort of tourism regulations that align with this, as well as limiting the number of visitors to ecologically sensitive areas, promoting environmentally friendly activities, and really focusing on managing the carrying capacity of their ecosystem so that they can sustain long-term sustainable tourism, as well as engaging their communities. And, that has been a successful case study in terms of, it was on the UNESCO endangered list in 2018. It's been removed from that list due to the protection efforts that they've put in place. And I think globally it's recognized as an excellent destination for sustainable tourism. And in our region, we have these pristine marine ecosystems. They are under threat because of environmental management challenges, climate change, etc. But there's nothing stopping us from extending good conservation policies that can support the restoration of these ecosystems, because I think we have to go beyond conservation also to look at restoration due to some of the environmental challenges. If you look, for example, at Costa Rica as well, they have a very strong global brand in terms of their ecotourism model. They have green certification, a green certification program that hotels and tour operators can get registered for. And so that aligns clearly with their practices, as well as having 99% of the country generated through renewable energy. And so the carbon footprint of tourism is much lower, and they've directly integrated adaptation into their policies. Maldives as well is a really excellent example of how they've enhanced their natural ecosystems through luxury eco resorts, but then also conservation partnerships with NGOs and resorts to ensure that there's protection around key species like manta rays and whale sharks. And they have a dedicated program to educate visitors about the marine conservation efforts and promote responsible behavior. And this is something that we can easily integrate into our tourism products. I think that there is work being done in this area, and really, I think due to the demand in sustainable tourism, it should be a key focus area as one of our key products as a region, but then also looking more broadly at, for example, there's a blue flag sustainable certification for beaches. that promotes, environmental education, water quality, environmental management and safety. And so these are also some aspects that we can look at. Going back to the conversation around sustainable seafood, and adopting international certifications. I mentioned earlier the Marine Stewardship Council certification, and there are also fair trade certifications for seafood. And in the Bahamas, they've successfully certified the rock lobster fishery, which has led to a 20% premium on the product. Similarly, Jamaica has received the MSC certification for their conch products. And so these are certifications that we can extend to other small-scale fishers and ensure that we can build out cooperative models and ensure that there's access to these type of certifications that can increase the premium value of the products and premium markets and the demand in the US, North America, North America, EU, and Japan. And I would also say that the capacity building aspect in terms of what the challenges are around the rejection rates for poor seafood handling and the quality of products is also easily overcome through training and traceability. So for example, World Bank did a study and a pilot project on increasing blockchain in the seafood sector to improve the digital traceability of seafood, to improve the trust in EU export markets, and that was successful. There are also apps such as Shell Catch that improve traceability, quality, and sustainability standards, which can be leveraged by fishers. Once you have a phone, you're able to download the app, record the catch, and so these are sort of simple ways that traceability and sustainability can be integrated into the seafood market. Everybody has a phone, and so that provides access in terms of improving the visibility and quality of existing products. And then financial support, I mentioned earlier the grants and the concessional loans, but really ensuring that through those supports, we can leverage the certifications, ensure that we can collect the data and meet the upcoming ESG requirements to access future funding as we scale businesses. I think it's incredibly important and something that shouldn't be disregarded. The quota systems and the closed seasons around specific species to ensure that they can replenish themselves, catch sizes, these type of things have proven to be successful. And even within 5 years of a marine protected area being established, there has been evidence that shows a 30% increase in biodiversity, in coral resilience, in fish sizes, and the productivity of ecosystems. So I think it's really important also to understand the science behind the marine ecosystems and where this has been implemented successfully and monitored. It's a case study in itself of the benefits of protecting our marine environment so that we can have the natural asset base to provide the long-term benefits that we derive economically and socially from the marine environment, and that provides for the foundation of our sustainable blue economy.
Thank you so much, Asia. There, couple of things I wanted to signal that people have been asking some questions in the Q&A. So just to show the audience, we are going to come back to those in a second. We still have I think ample time in this session, so we are going to come back and make sure we address all of those questions. Secondly, in terms of what you've shared there, Asia, I think it's pertinent to mention just on the front of traceability, there's an early stage of pilot project that emerged right here in Barbados that Company Kieron has supported, titled DigiFish, but it's around issuing a fleet of longline and trawler fishers and so on with vessel monitoring systems, so that they can track, to your point, exactly where they're getting their catches and so on, and then complementing that with a smart scale at the landing points. So basically build out that base of data required, as you mentioned in the ESG requirements. So, but I think coming off of what you just shared, there are two sort of angles that we want to pursue while we still have some time before turning into the Q&A. One is, continuing along the line of sustainable tourism. And for that, Nicole, I want to bring you back in tourism. Obviously, we've had an entire session on tourism so far today. Tourism plays an undeniably pivotal role in the blue economy. How can sustainable tourism practices continue to enhance market access and attract more international visitors to this region?
I think there is an endless possibilities. For sure, there is such a now need to attract the eco-conscious traveler. We can see things where we can focus in on promoting fishing villages and moving that farm to table to the sea to table experience. Combining the kind of authentic experiences that most travelers are seeking. Millennials and Gen Zs reporting are willing to travel, 60% of them, more than to spend their money on goods. And so that need for travel and that need for experience. But the other thing that is important, we already have 30 million plus persons coming into the region as stopover arrivals. This is a perfect way for us to be able to introduce our products into the existing stopover arrivals that are coming, the visitors that are coming. And I would suggest that it's time we could partner with hotels, local hotels, doing pop-ups within the hotel, not just having the items served in a meal, but working with the chefs, showing that these products are local products that have been incorporated in meals, really building out that gastronomy experience. So combining what we see in terms of culinary travelers who are looking for really great gastronomy experience, whether it's food festivals or just cooking experience in the destinations, but then leveraging that in terms of saying, this is sustainable food, this has been sourced in the right way, we have traceability, and that combines the two, different angles of what we see for tourism. Obviously, we would need to partner more with niche tour operators. We do offer our annual Caribbean travel marketplace. Next year, we'll be in Antigua for the first time. And so that will have a totally different impact on the Eastern Caribbean. We were in Barbados last year for the first time. And that, I think, is another opportunity to really kind of harness the relationship that already exists in how we promote tourism. There will be a linkages component at Marketplace next year. And then this is another opportunity for persons in the space of sustainable travel, as well as suppliers that we talked about, the various products. If it was somebody that's doing CMOS, they're doing maybe items that are scrubs or soaps or other things that may be coming out of the marine environment, we can now showcase those items. Because one thing, if somebody gets introduced to something here, they will want to go back home and then find a way to buy it. So again, online digital platforms, making sure that we have the presence for e-commerce so that we continue to kind of close the loop in terms of the initial exposure, the export potential as persons, so 30 plus million people go back home, want to buy those products for their family and friends, and utilizing that full loop to ensure that we are exposing everything from a sustainable point of view. So I think there's also lots of opportunities there. We haven't even talked about the fact that we can continue to leverage, again, the existing products and services that we have. We can support our communities by building on community tourism experiences. That is also an area that has tremendous potential for the local population to create strategies around the blue economy, not just talking about where the fish comes from, but who are the persons behind the fish, the fishermen, the fishermen's families. How do they prepare their meals? What is their community experience like? So you can take us from the sea back into the communities. And of course, we can continue to use things like technology, whether it's virtual reality or other sorts of technology, to use that to pre-show. This is what the experience could be like when you're coming into the Caribbean. This is a kind of underwater experience that exists, and use that to attract international visitors. So I think there's a wealth of opportunities for us to really move to the next level. We have a lot of natural assets that are currently underutilized in a lot of ways. We have not even spoken about diving, snorkeling, and other adventures. There is so much that is available to us, and we just have to ensure that we leverage it, but in a responsible way by looking at carrying capacities, making sure that what we're doing with the community involvement and not, kind of just moving in and taking over, but ensuring that our communities are an active part of any push to utilize the blue economy for driving more markets. There, as I said before at the very beginning, there is over 3 trillion current market size, going up to 11.4 trillion by 2032, just in the sustainable tourism market. When we talk about the wellness market, that's another possible 1.4 trillion by 2027. I spoke about the adventure travel market, which is another 600 billion. So there is really a lot of eyes that we can cement and draw to the Caribbean, going well beyond just typical sun, sea, and sand, and really utilizing all of the assets that we have to bring out and attract a new type of traveler who wants to experience the Caribbean in a very authentic and real way.
Well said, Nicola. To put a different spin in that, what I'm hearing from you is that we're leaving money on the table that we can ill afford. We need to adjust our practices to better do that. Now I'm seeing our MC on the screen, so I know what that means. We do have a few questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to probably bring those in now and let's tackle them. Hopefully we'll have a time for a quick round robin, final comments at the end, but let's see. So firstly, seeing a comment here, great presentation, Ms. Edwin. So Natasha, this is to you. Congrats on the amazing work that Caribbean Export does. Do you provide funding opportunities to Caribbean businesses as part of your support? And if so, could you expand on that?
Thank you. Thank you for that question and comment. Yes, we do. We have under our past 11th EDF, European Development Fund, we would have disbursed close to between 7.5 and 8 million euro in grants. At this point, we do not have. However, we are currently in conceptualizing a grant program that we hope to launch somewhere around April next year, at least Q2, the second quarter next year. And this will be dedicated for green projects and digitalization of business. So we believe these two areas really have the potential to transform our economies. So whereas in the past we would have, done general grants, so to speak, the funding this time is dedicated to those two areas, and we're hoping to launch somewhere in the second quarter. So just keep abreast of our newsletter, our socials, etc. And we will hopefully in the new year start rolling out the awareness so that companies are aware of the eligibility criteria and the types of projects that we will fund.
Sure. I actually had 2 follow-up questions on that based on what you just shared. One of them you just where people could turn to for information. So you're saying Caribbean Export website and your socials, and the other, particularly green and digitalization. So would you, given the context of what we're doing today, would Caribbean Export be amenable to looking at intersection between those target sectors and blue economy, some of the blue economy opportunities that we've been discussing today?
Yeah, so we are right now doing some research to understand sort of what a grant could look like in that space. What does a green grant look like? Is it, and I don't think that that's all we want to do is to talk about solar panels and so on. So in the same way, digitalization of business, what does that look like? Many of us think it's not just about, getting companies to go online and have a website. And, we know there are challenges with e-commerce and so on. So we are right now trying to study the market, maybe we're looking at other small island states to see what other, whether it's in Africa or other, SV, small vulnerable economies, to see what they're doing, what are the successes and what are the lessons that we can draw from that as we try to develop that grant program. So at this point, everything is really on the table, and hopefully the research will guide us to know what might potential impactful grants be and where we might want to dedicate those resources.
Got you. Thanks for that, Natasha. And Asia, we have a question here for you. Could you explain more in depth about the partnership between resorts and NGOs in the Maldives, especially around financing of conservation efforts? Like, who actually finances the conservation activity of those NGOs?
Thank you. That's a great question. And so the Maldives model is a very interesting one because it's public-private partnership, community involvement, NGOs, local NGOs and international NGOs. And for the resorts themselves, they some of them are major financiers of restoration and conservation efforts because coral reefs offer coastal protection, they provide that coastal resilience, and the Maldives, as many islands, is facing sea level rise and coastal erosion. So they know it's a worthwhile investment to invest in coral reef restoration projects to protect their beaches, their coastline that they derive this tourism income from. So for example, there are resorts like Four Seasons, Suniva Fushi, and they directly partner with NGOs and fund coral restoration and establish coral nurseries so that they can outplant where there's bleaching events or dying corals. There's other resorts that partner directly with NGOs on specific cases around species. So for example, to rehabilitate turtles that are entangled in ghost nets, and those are from direct resort contributions as well as guest donations, and the Manta Trust. So they have a partnership whereby hotels would host research individuals and conservation activities into understanding manta rays, and that directly links to an ecotourism product that they provide. So they have this partnership model that works very successfully, and they realize that financing it is good for their brand, for attracting eco tourists, but then also maintaining the quality of their beach and their environment because people love to snorkel and dive, and it's a pristine marine environment. They do also, some NGOs locally also do get funding from Global Environmental Facility, UN, other organizations such as the Global Fund for Coral Reefs. But yeah, the resorts do play an active part in a lot of the restoration activities. Also from the government level, there's arrival fees embedded in tickets. They have various conservation levies, diving fees, etc., that are embedded in the pricing that then go directly into conservation and restoration activities.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Asia. So I think as a final sort of opportunity for each of you to have a last word, to kind of bring things back to where we started, we outlined, or Asia, you actually started by outlining a number of different challenges that the region faces, particularly economies of scale, high energy costs, infrastructure gaps, and so on. In as few words as possible, I want to give each of you an opportunity to respond to how important is regional collaboration? What are the opportunities for regional collaboration to address some of these important barriers and to unlock the opportunities that you've been talking about? So perhaps Asia, starting with you, since you took us there, and then we'll just have one final word from everyone else on that topic, and we'll close it.
Yes, I think really regional collaboration is everything. It's very important in terms of the economies of scale and the demand for sustainable products in external markets. Unless we can work together and get the volumes and also ensure the regional protection of our resources, then we won't be able to leverage the opportunities. And I think it's a real opportunity actually for us to bring things together and engage in accessing the benefits for our markets, because we have this pristine environment and we have a thriving blue economy, and we need to maximize the opportunities that it presents for us.
Thank you. Nicola?
Well, it is a must. It's not even a question. It's the regional collaboration, both with public and private sector, that got us out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And, being the president of CHT at the time, I can tell you, invaluable. So going forward, for us to really take advantage of the blue economy and just all the assets that we could leverage, I think it is critical for us to really collaborate, not try to look at it as competition, but look at it as a strategic direction. Just like how we're really putting energy behind multi-destination marketing, looking at bringing in long-haul lift and then working with regional carriers to push those visitors throughout the region. It has to be a same strategy, going after larger pieces of business and seeing how we can put together the various products and services across the region using regional transportation and everything else so that we can actually fully benefit from the potential that we have. So I think there's just no question about it. Have to do it.
Absolutely. Nigel and then Natasha.
I agree with regional collaboration. There's a clarion call, a call to urgency where regional collaboration is concerned, because with regional collaboration, we as regions of the Caribbean, once we come together, our representation in terms of the quality and the standards, in terms of benchmarking, our representation will be equally on par with those of international standards. And as a region, we have all the resources in terms of the blue economy, and it's an untapped resource in terms of, for the past, let's say 5, 10 years at least. And so there are a lot of opportunities for us in the region, as once we collaborate and we come together as one, we can be the premium choice in terms of the Caribbean region where the blue economy is concerned.
Fully agree, Nigel. And Natasha, final word from you.
Yeah, nothing dissimilar really. For the points that have been mentioned for, scale, visibility, the reach, when we take companies to market, like we would have taken about 10 companies to Paris 3 weeks ago for an international trade show, branded as absolutely Caribbean. I kid you not, everybody wants to come to the Caribbean because it's well known that tourism brand is there. And leveraging that really portends significant benefits. We know sun, sea, sand, as we all know, but there's a lot more that we can attach and leverage from those blue resources. So I think it's there's no question about collaboration and the benefits of it.
Excellent. Next time, Natasha, you're taking people to Paris, let me know.
Come on, let's go.
So with that, I hand back over to Sanya, our MC, to close this out. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Kieron, and thank you to the panelists, Asia, Nigel, Nicola, Natasha, for ending us off on a very, very high note. This last and final session this afternoon helped us to better understand and appreciate the challenges as well as the opportunities, and there are many of those, as it relates to market access and exports. So thank you all again. And I've been tasked with bringing some closing remarks. So the Caribbean, or the Eastern Caribbean Invest Blue project, and all the entities involved, IDB, Compete Caribbean Partnership Facility, the OECS Commission, and the respective investment promotion agencies of Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines play a very important role in the promotion and development of the blue economy within the region, not just across these three entities, but as well, 3 Caribbean countries, but as well as the entire region. And today's event helped in confirming the key focus areas for successfully capitalizing on blue economic development, finding innovative ways to address challenges as well as to explore opportunities. And these key areas speak to sustainability, social sustainability, looking at livelihoods, community-based initiatives, as well as social safeguards, economic sustainability, addressing economic sustainability, addressing capacity building, as well as sustainable financing, environmental sustainability, looking at conservation, as well as the alignment across various ecosystem services, many of which we have heard about today, but in key sector areas such as tourism, fisheries, and aquaculture. Other key areas that we really heard coming out today was collaboration. We just had that last piece there on the importance of collaboration. There's also the importance of having those strategic partnerships across the various sectors and building in resilience into blue economic development for its overall viability and sustainability across the region, as well as having those regulatory frameworks. We heard some about that in today's session and why that's important. So this event helps to foster the local support across its promotion agencies as well as regionally. And our keynote address this morning, our speaker, Dr. Jules, said it best. Blue economic development is a balance between profit and purpose. So may we strive to achieve this balance. At this time, I would like to thank everyone who participated in today's Blue Investment Forum. Thanks to all the moderators and all our many distinguished panelists, and to the IDB, the Compete Caribbean Partnership Facility, and the OECS Commission for having me as the mistress of ceremonies for this event. And on behalf of the CRFM Secretariat, in light of all this collaboration, we welcome further support and collaboration with all the entities here and all the different partners that we continue to support throughout the region. Finally, there will be a survey, and to complete the survey, it will be emailed to. And at this time, I just want to wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for being a part of this important forum. We hope that you would take away something from it that is meaningful. I know you would, because a lot of wealth of information was shared, as well as resources. A part of this was networking, and that does foster and build collaboration. So there are resources there that can be and will be shared. So thank you again, and may we continue to build and work together as we really advance in the blue economy to advance as well in this global market. So thank you and good evening to all.